I'm gonna get my thing on. Hello, thank you everyone for joining us. Again, my name is Kayl May. I am the author of the book, The Unveiling of a Mask. And what that book is about is just what we're going to be talking about today. Life after a diagnosis of a mental illness. So imagine you having a family, you're going on with your family, everything is going fine. Then one day you're working, one day you began to stay at home, locked up in a room, and you're hearing voices talking to you. So the only thing you know how to do is read the Bible because you come from a religious background, right? So you're reading the Bible and you're thinking about what is really going on with me. A person that worked all the time, scared, terrified to get up out of bed and go to work so they can take care of their family. What would you do if that happened to you? A lot of people don't know what to do, but that's what happened to my husband in 1998. We didn't know what was going on. All I know is he was a person that worked all the time, and because he wanted the best for his family. We only had one television in our house because we love to spend time together in the family room as a family with our two boys. He could not get up out of bed. He could not go to work. He was telling me that our neighbor was throwing rocks at the house. What am I to think? We have nothing to go on. We have no mental illness in our family. So I didn't know what was going on. I was young, had two small boys in elementary school, 3 years apart. Getting up and saying, someone listen to me. Something is going on with my husband. I don't know what it is. So then they say, well, y'all newly married. So maybe it's just you're going through problems. The next thing they say is, maybe he's on drugs. Because that's one of the first things they say when you're going through a mental illness. They think, because they don't know anything about it, they think that you're doing drugs. But me knowing my husband, even though we were young, been together ever since we were 16 and 18, I knew it wasn't drugs. But I didn't know how to get anyone to hear my voice because he no longer had a voice. He wasn't talking to anyone. He wasn't saying anything to anyone. Can you imagine what he was going through? Not only what he was going through, what we were going through. He was a loving father. He was a loving husband. He no longer wanted to spend time with the children. He stayed locked up in one of our sons' room reading the Bible all the time because all he could know is, let me pray to God who's going to heal me. So when you talk about that to other people, does it sound strange to them? So can you imagine if it sounds strange to you when I'm telling you my story, how strange it sounds to him, how strange it sounds to other people. But with love and support, we got people to understand, we got family members to understand, I need someone with me. I need someone to get this man some help because I know something is going on with him. So we took him to get a diagnosis. And if any of y'all are patients or have had family members who are a mental illness patient, it is hard to get them help when they don't want help. And it's not that they mentally don't want the help. They don't know that they need the help. Because my husband was diagnosed in 2001, so he showed signs in 1998. He was diagnosed in 2001. So all those years we went through him not knowing what was going on, just thinking we was having marital problems. But in 2001, he got diagnosed with schizophrenia. No one knew what that was. No one knew what that was about. So anybody else would say, well, we don't understand what's going on. We're not going through all that. We're going to live our lives and we're going to let you go. It has happened to so many people. Since we published our book just a month ago, on May the 12th, since we launched it, March the 12th, since we launched our book, we've had so many people to come to us, and especially to me, to say, thank you for staying with your husband as he go through this. Because so many people, so many of our partners, our spouses, they leave the person who is mentally ill because they don't understand it. One of my mentees even shared with me that she talked her sister into leaving her husband because they did not understand what was going on with him. They thought he was on drugs. But I knew my husband, and I knew he was worth the character of the person that he was all of those years. Schizophrenia didn't take away from that. So with love and with support, we were able to get him some help. That happened in 2001. In 2017, we're more in love now than we were back all those years ago because we've learned how to deal with it. But of course, we had to have that love. We had to have that support. We had to make sure he got help. And one of the main things you have to remember after having a life after a diagnosis, yes, you are going to have struggles. Set your mind up for that. It's not going to be a perfect marriage. But if you think about it, We've been together for 31 years. What is a perfect marriage? Everyone who's in a relationship or married goes through some type of problem, right? Your problem may not be my problem, but you can insert whatever your problem is into that, because it's going to take motivation. It's going to take inspiration. It's going to take love. It's going to take patience. It's going to take communication. It's going to take you being in love with that person and understanding that person is worth the time that you're putting in. So what we did is, when the times were going good, we never spoke about it. No one knew he had a mental illness. He didn't look like it. You know, everybody said you have to have a look if you're a mental ill person. You didn't have to have a look. You know, just because he doesn't look like he had one, he was suffering every day with it. But because we gave him the support that was needed, we made sure we had the therapists that were needed. We made sure that he had the doctors that were needed. And we made sure that he took care of himself. And that's the most important part. I can love him all day long. If we didn't make sure that he had the support and got the medications that he needed, it would have never worked. So that gave us the chance that when you have the bad times, because you're going to have those, right? So you make those memories so good when things are going good, so that when you began to have those struggles, when he began to get off his medication, because statistics say that if you are taking the oral medications, that you are going to get off them at some point. You're going to get off them for a couple of reasons. Some may be because you don't like the side effects. You don't like the mummified feeling. Or it's because you take them long enough, you think that you don't need them anymore. But for some reason, they get off of them. So those are the times that I have to step up and say, it's time to get some help. You need to get back on your medications. You need to be strong. And that's hard, especially here in Georgia, because the patients are so protected. They're protected so much that we can't get them the help that's needed sometimes. So we have to be able to stand up and be strong and say, no matter how many times you turn me away, this man needs some help right now. And if you tell me not to come back tomorrow, I'm coming back tomorrow. If you tell me not to come back the next day, I'm going to be there the next day, because he's worth it. And because of what you're used to seeing is not his norm. You know, I've taken him to get help at places, and they say, he looks fine to me. Your norm is not his norm. I know his norm is. I've been dealing with him since 1998. I know every step of the way, every symptom that he's having, and what track he's on, and how far he is away from being off of his medicine, if we can get him back without being in the doctor. Then you have to know, according to how far they are, you have to be strong enough to say, as the spouse, I can no longer talk you into getting back on your medication. I can't talk you into taking that pill anymore. So you have to have that support system, someone else in your family. For me, it was my sister-in-law. His father died when he was 2 years old. For the longest, she didn't believe anything that I was saying. That was her baby brother. There was nothing wrong with him. He was the baby, and they treated him like the baby, even at 30 and 40 years old, now 50. But now she understood, because I had to send him back home to let them see, because we were different states away, out of sight, out of mind, right? You have to set up someone to have that support system, because she was like the father of the family, because the father had passed. She was the one that can force him to do things according to how far he got along off his medication. And these are things that you have to know about your spouse, because it's no longer his sickness, it is our sickness. He don't have schizophrenic, we have schizophrenic, because I have to know everything that he knows about it. I have to learn just like he have to learn, because if you know anyone with mental illness, they are some of the most intelligent people there are. And they learn what to do and not to do, so that you won't know that they're getting off their medication. So I always say, and I'm country, you have to know them like the back of your hand. You have to know every symptom they're going to have. But at some point, even going to his sister was not enough. I sometimes had to be strong enough and say to the courts, I have to admit him into the hospital. And he's not going voluntarily. I have to involuntarily submit him. I have to get an attorney. I have to go through the paperwork, and I have to do all of that. And we've had to do that a couple of times. But you have to be strong enough when you have a spouse with a mental illness to stand up and do the things that they can no longer do. I had a car wreck December 2013. I couldn't walk for 5 months. Whereas I took care of him mentally, he now had to take care of me physically. But because I knew how to take care of him, it showed him how to take care of me when I needed him. And when you're a family, you have to understand, when you are in a relationship, in a marriage, you have to understand that whatever you don't have, your spouse has to have. So whereas I was taking care of him mentally and I couldn't do anything physically, He had to be there for me, but I had to continue to be there for him mentally. That's when our book came in. That was the best thing for me, and I know everyone in here has a story. And if you don't want to publish your story, that's fine. If you don't want to publish your story, that's fine. But it's good to write it down. All these years, I never wrote it down. The best therapy for me was writing that book. Yes, it made me relive it. And on the back of the book, it tells you about laugh with me, cry with me, laugh with me again, cry with me again. Because I went through all of those emotions while I was writing my book. But it was important to go through those because it gave such healing to me. And then as me and my husband talked about it, we talked about it so much he had forgotten some of the things, because they forget sometimes when they get off their medication some of the things that they've done, right? So it gave us a chance to discuss those things. So I'm going through all of that to tell you, your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, they are not going through the illness alone. Even though you haven't had the diagnosis, you're going through it together. And if you go head to head and go through it together, you will be successful. And I can honestly say, and I'm not a person that ever puts on, I can honestly say we are happy even though you have a mental illness. I would not go back, if I had a chance to go back through time and change what he had. If we can take schizophrenic out of the equation, I would never do that. Because I don't know what else may replace that. I know we've gotten through this mental illness, right? And it's a struggle that we'll be going through for the rest of our lives. But I know we've gotten through that, and I know how to handle that on a day-to-day basis. So make sure if your loved one is going through something, even if it's a cousin, or brother, or sister, father, mother, make sure you're going through it with them, because you'll have a more enlightening feel of what they're going through and what they're dealing with, and you'll be able to help them. Again, my name is Kayl May. I'm the author of The Unveiling of a Mask. You're welcome.